So about 6 years ago, I was teaching middle school and one of my students came to me in a pretty anxious way. They came up to me looking nervous and said, "Hey, Noan, I think we want to buy a nuke." That threw me so much. Here I am teaching a role play game based on creating a sustainable society in what's dubbed the greenest school in the world. And what do my kids ask me in the morning? Can we build a nuclear weapon? I got into class and it turns out that this was not just a single kid. Everybody in class had this on their mind. There was real fear in their eyes. As I started to unpack this, I had learned that Paxal, in the classroom over, had decided to throw out an extravagant offer. He said, "Yeah, sure, you can build a nuclear weapon if you can pay this exorbitant fee." Well, the kids found a way to pool together the money and paid for a nuclear weapon. And now every class in our middle school was worried that they were going to be the victim of nuclear attack. This sustainability roleplay very quickly turned into mutually assured destruction. Now, I can't think of a better, more real experience for kids to have that exhibits what it feels like living in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world than these types of role plays. In this session, I'm going to share with you some of my stories and adventures and all the resources we've built in making these types of games. I've had about 6 years experience building these, and we've spent hundreds of hours in creating the resources and refining them and thinking how these can turn into amazing experiences. And in this time, I would like to show you how that's done and also how you can use some of what we've already made. So, fasten your seatbelts because we're in for a ride. Alright, so to start with, I want to share with you some of what I would consider the general characteristics of these role-play games. First of all, everybody needs a role, a character, who they are. This can be themselves as a person, but it's a lot more fun playing make-believe. And so I've put on different hats, such as an artificial intelligence central authority to an anarchist rebel who is trying to foment revolt on the planet Mars. And I live these roles. I go around with the attitude and personality needed to pull it off. And your students should too. Really try to take it in and become who they are. Second, this needs cooperation. Cooperation between a team of educators, because pulling this off as an individual could be pretty tricky. I would definitely recommend for a class you have a couple support people who are either running the mechanics of the role play and supporting students in building that, or if you are playing with more people, and we've gone up to around 100, 110 kids at a time, then you will probably need several educators taking on the different roles. You also need to come with some resources prepared. I have done several of these with varying levels of material to give the kids. Now, artifacts are so critical. A lot of these are just pieces of paper that hold value in our role-playing games only. In other cases, we have wall maps created or actual physical artifacts that the kids can hold and share and pass around. All of these really add to the authenticity of the role-playing game. And then finally, this is going to take time. You can do something that is immersive and interesting in a couple hours, But that's not what we're looking for. Here we want to go deep, and we want the kids to really experience a arc of a story, and that takes weeks of classes. Usually I found that we would be looking at a 1 hour class 3 times a week, and maybe over 5 weeks or 6 weeks could work well. But around 12 hours of playtime distributed in a comfy way so that there's enough time to reflect and take in all that's happening in these role-playing games. So those are the general characteristics. I'm going to show you a couple examples now for you to get a feeling of how this looks when applied. So let me start you with Utopia Dystopia. In this role-playing game, we decided that we were going to focus on skills. We threw the kids into the future where they were controlled by an artificial intelligence, that would be me or the other teachers, and they had to make do on trading on some basic resources. One of the driving themes across it was the impact of migration. So we allowed kids to move between classes and experience that newcomer immigrant feel, as well as put on them questions like, what would happen if refugees landed on your doorstep? This was played over 3 weeks and had some amazing stories coming out of it. The next role play I want to share is called Marsbound. In here, we wanted to hit all of the learning outcomes traditionally done in science, and so we flipped the classroom model. The kids took the work home and were tested on it right at the beginning of each session. From that, they gained resources, and we used our class time to draw out those themes that they had learned in the content and help to build these Martian colonies. One of the overriding themes we used for Marsbound was the tension between a corporatocracy and an anarchy. And we played out both of those roles throughout it, giving kids the choice between structure and guaranteed profit and freedom with a lot of uncertainty. Finally, I want to tell you about the New States of Atlantis. The New States of Atlantis is one which I have repeated now 3 different times, every time making it a little better and more refined. In this, our students become settlers on a new island, and are faced with scenarios and challenges every day. They need to balance budgets, they need to understand the processes that happen in democratic societies and come to decisions either through consensus or through votes. It's up to them, really. This one I've played with the smallest group so far. We've played with a single island operating, and what I noticed was it still had that powerful impact, and the motivation to learn, in this case, all done through distance learning thanks to COVID, was super powerful and super engaging. It was one of the moments where I felt comfortable with the level of engagement that I was getting from my distance learning students. So we've done a lot of these role-playing games, and I have no intention of stopping. I could talk about several other experiments where we've had kids actually designing the games. High schoolers designed a full unit for other high schoolers using the role-playing game as the model. We've also had kids involved in building games. We created one on Indonesian history and how it felt to be the different tribes of Indonesia. Where I want to go to next, though, is exploring the limits at which these games could be played. I have had the joy of inviting parents to be active members in the New States of Atlantis, What I realized is that these are not games for kids alone. Some of the most creative and interesting ideas came from when the parents and adults started to engage in this imaginative play together. So I would love to see how this could be extended into potentially university classes or into adult groups who are just as excited to learn and want a device to carry them on and advance their learning experience. Well, I hope that this started to light your fires, because I can only imagine how excited you will be when you start seeing the results of role-playing games in a classroom setting. There's community groups like Teacher Gamer that on Facebook, which allow you to liaise with other people about these types of experiences. And I can't wait to see what other people start creating when they start adopting this type of platform for turning their learning into something that truly simulates the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity of the world to come. So check out those resources, start creating, and keep in touch.